Why did they bother to fake when some genuine things were happening? I think there are a lot of mediums, in fact, who do that to keep things going. Therefore, one mustn't always feel that if a medium has cheated, that's the end of the medium. I think sometimes it's a case of priming the pump. You fake something and then something genuine happens.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that evidence of fraud weakens the real evidence.
Gross and Playfair, convinced the Hodgsons were genuine, continued to record an enormous amount of unusual occurrences.
A lot of activity in the bedroom, the girls being sort of shaken and bounced up and down and thrown out of bed. We even had a box of matches caught fire, or rather was burned on the top, without the matches themselves igniting. The heavy leather armchair flipping over backwards was quite definitely the most impressive. It was broad daylight and it was right in front of my nose, and nobody was anywhere near it.
However, as the investigators spent more and more time with the family, doubts concerning Gross's objectivity began to surface.
Two investigators spent an extraordinary amount of time in the house, far more really than in most cases.
Morris, as always, came out with instant reasons for everything happening, and it was always attached to something to do with poltergeist.
Morris certainly considered it the most fantastic thing that had ever happened.
I was very wary of his initial observations because he wanted to see things.
After a while, maybe I'm cynical or whatever, I just find it was a bit too wanting to read too much into it.
Morris accepted as genuine a lot of phenomena that he did not personally see, and accepted the word of the family for a lot of things.
If you're a member of something like the Psycho Research Society and you believe in the paranormal and you want to see paranormal manifestations, you'll find it.
Gross had suffered a bereavement barely a year earlier, and some thought that this was causing him to place too much faith in the Hodgsons' claims.
The whole affair was a very big thing in Morris's life, because he'd lost his own daughter, also called Janet. This to him was really proof of the paranormal, and probably proof to him of survival too.
I would have thought for Morris to have lost his daughter a year before, it's got to have been in the back of his mind, I would have thought.
To try and speculate that he may have lost all objectivity, I don't think it's a very good explanation. Morris, from a very early point in the investigation, was looking at this very much as a poltergeist case. He was looking at it as possibly occurrence of psychokinesis. At no point in the case was there any sort of confirmatory aspect for Morris that Janet was trying to communicate with him, or that in solving this case it would help him deal with the loss of his daughter.
The legitimacy of Gross's testimony is backed up by the fact that others were also witness to much of the strange phenomena, and this activity continued, including problems with Graham Morris's camera equipment.
Graham Morris, the photographer, a very highly experienced professional Fleet Street man, he charged up his flash guns one night, and when he started taking pictures, found they'd all discharged at once, which is pretty unlikely. In fact, it's not possible.
I had a flash gun, or maybe even two flash guns that were fully charged, always fully charged before getting there, and then trying to use not one but two of them, and the power drained from them, and that was, I couldn't answer that. There was no reason for that. I'd never seen it happen before. It's certainly never happened since.
And it wasn't just the newspaper men who experienced problems with technical equipment.
We had a video recorder with an infrared lens where we were hoping to film something happening in the dark, and all that would happen was that when they switched the machine on, all the lights came on simultaneously. You know, fast forward, back, play, and so on, which they said was not possible. But there it was.
Despite the investigators' best efforts, no video footage of any of the reported phenomena was captured.
In the Enfield Poltergeist, we don't have any footage. All we have is some photographs and the accounts of the people that were involved, either the family or witnesses or the investigators.
If I could go back with the gear that you have now, the equipment, the technology there is now, you'd be laughing. You'd either photograph everything or you'd show it all up completely to be fraud if that were the case, which I doubt. But you'd have a lot more on film or the digital. You'd have video running, all sorts of things.
Despite no video evidence, more and more unexplainable phenomena continued to be reported. The knocking on the walls continued. There were outbreaks of fire that disappeared as quickly as they started. And the curtains in the bedroom are seen to blow in the wind, even when the windows are closed. But most disturbingly, the activity was seen to centre more specifically around 12-year-old Janet.
Janet was sedated for her own safety.
It was when she was there that things happened.
Janet was the epicenter of the whole thing, the common denominator of everything that happened.
Following the extensive media coverage, by November 1977, the Enfield Poltergeist was the most famous paranormal case in British history, and the family were now minor celebrities.
You ended up getting more and more people coming to the house just to witness things. It ended up like a sort of Victorian sideshow, the Elephant Man almost.
It must have been awful for them. Life itself was difficult without having a poltergeist, throwing its weight around the place, throwing its energy around the place.
And it was becoming increasingly obvious that one member of the family in particular was at the centre of the activity.
Janet was always the focal point. It was when she was there that things happened. So when she was there with her sister, her brother, her mother, the Nottinghams, it was always Janet when things happened.
Janet was a very lively kid, very athletic, pretty well behaved, I would say. She was always very polite with us. She was good at school. She was learning quite a few subjects and seemed to get on well with everybody.
She was a very normal child, yeah. I mean, there was nothing odd about her in any way. She was good at school. I used to help her out with her homework. She was doing, I think, French and German. Sorry about the others, but I mean, she was the brightest of the family.
Numerous small objects used to fly around near her, and on more than one occasion, heavy chairs and sofa would flip over when she was around. And yes, she saw it all.
She'd come home from school with stories about how things were happening in the classroom. She'd go down the shops and cans would fly off the shelf in the local supermarket. Janet was the epicenter of the whole thing, common denominator of everything that happened.
So why did these events apparently focus on a seemingly normal young girl?
There's a popular belief that poltergeists are related to the age of puberty. It seems to me that it must have something to do with a sudden extra release of energy, which the onset of menses presumably releases. And don't quite know why this should be significant, but it's been noted often enough to make it pretty well accepted.
Usually you find the activity centres around prepubescent children, children just about to go into puberty. It seems to be centred around the hypothalamus in the brain. That seems to be the area of the brain that sort of lights up when paranormal phenomena is occurring. And so it's no real surprise to then say that there's a child going through an emotional change, a chemical change as well. Could this be the prime conditions, this sort of chemical driving sort of thing that creates side effects, PK effects in people?
The focus of the poltergeist activity, in this particular case Janet, may be consciously or unconsciously causing the phenomena using psychokinesis.
I'm sure it was a subconscious cry for help. It seemed to me like she's trying to communicate with Dad who isn't there, Mum who hasn't got time to talk back, brother who isn't there, other brother who can't really communicate with you, sister who cries at the drop of a hat. Who does she talk to?